The way we behave towards all other forms of life on this planet is crucial for our own survival. Welcome to Eco Africa and our special edition, Every Species Counts. By the way, this also means us humans. I am Sandra Kahomza Twinovidio, right here in Kampala, Uganda.
And I'm Chris Alemsi, Nigeria. What many of us do not understand is that everything in nature is connected with everything else. Every plant, every animal plays its role in the great ecosystem of Earth. What does that mean? Let me explain. Try to imagine life on Earth as a tower of building blocks, and each block is a species of animals, plants, fungi, bacteria, or other living thing. They depend on each other to keep the whole structure strong and stable. But human activities is causing the loss of many species as we use up more space and resources. As the building blocks are removed, the tower gets weaker and weaker. Putting the whole thing, our world as we know it, would collapse. Fortunately, it hasn't come to that yet, but we're already noticing changes around us when there are fewer insects because their host plants can no longer grow. Then the birds, lizards, and frogs that eat these insects also start disappearing. And when humans move close to areas that are the traditional habitat of other animals, there is potential for conflict, as our example from South Africa shows, with surprising results.
This local resident isn't fazed by the traffic whizzing past, nor are all the other baboons here in the suburb of Cape Town. But cute as it is to see them roaming around, they're exposed to a lot of dangers here. After a number of baboons were killed or badly injured by cars, volunteers started a traffic calming project.
I think that is the biggest win, is knowing that when you've managed to do a crossing and there's been no fatality or injury, is always a win. And even though it's very incremental, there has been progressiveness in terms of coexistence in Simonstown.
The baboons can be rather mischievous, regularly damaging property in their search for food. That's why some have called for the animals to be removed or euthanized. The Simonstown resident has found that a drill, some industrial strength webbing, and sturdy clips provides a kinder solution.
We stumbled across a video on YouTube of what they do in Canada, and it was basically that. And we thought, well, if it can work for the bears in Canada, it sure as hell can work for the baboons in Simonstown.
The method has proved successful, as the CCTV footage shows. Several restaurants in Simonstown have chosen a prevention strategy closer to the source of the problem. Organic waste is no longer mixed with other trash. Now it's collected in special bins that are set in a secure place for later pickup.
There's not much food in there anymore for them, which means that they hit it a lot less, and they've decided obviously to go elsewhere to go look for food. So the baboons have visited town a lot less regularly in terms of looking for food in my dustbins and a lot of the other restaurants' dustbins too.
Studies have shown that baboons are considered one of the most difficult animals for humans to coexist with. Baboon-human conflict is an issue in several countries in Africa, including Zimbabwe, Botswana, and Ethiopia. The conflict not only causes stress, it also carries health risk.
Baboons coming into the urban area and getting into people's houses as well as their bins, there is potential for transmission of disease across the two species. However, in the tests that have been done in the peninsular baboons, they've shown human pathogens. They've certainly shown cytomegalovirus and hepatitis A. And then secondly, they've found a trichurus, a whipworm actually, in the baboons. So this would indicate that baboons are more at risk of getting disease from us than we are, then they are likely to give us any disease.
The Waste Separation Initiative in Simonstown not only helps reduce interactions between baboons and humans, it serves another purpose too. Every day, a group of volunteers collect the food waste and takes it out of town to a farm where it's used as pig feed. This steady supply of kitchen scraps enables township residents to bolster their income.
By collecting the food and having them join us on these trips, it's allowed us to be able to build so many relationships with them, as well as giving them the opportunity to take care of themselves by collecting the food and then feeding it to their pigs, selling their pigs, and then be able to have cash in their pocket to be able to buy whatever they need in their house.
Humans and baboons have coexisted in South Africa for centuries, but threats to the animals' habitat have led to increased conflict. Simple as they are, the efforts in Simonstown show that coexistence is still possible, and baboons don't need to be seen as enemies of humans, but as neighbors.
A thought-provoking example of how humans can interact with other animals. How much more we still have to learn from other species can be seen when it comes to natural disasters such as volcanic eruptions and earthquake.
Even with all our technology, we still can't predict when they will hit. But there are some animals who could really help us out on that point.
We believe the Internet of Animals has the potential to become an early warning system in the future.
Many animals have better senses than humans. Some species can smell better, others can hear better, and some can even sense danger before it shows its face. It's been documented that before natural disasters, herd animals become agitated or change their behavior.
In Banda Aceh, for example, and many other parts of the world, it's said that animals ran away from big tsunamis or essentially warned of earthquakes. It's hard to confirm, but we're seeing more and more evidence that something like that's at play.
In some cases, animals started behaving differently many hours prior to a natural disaster. Behavioral biologist Martin Wikelski and his team are exploring the so-called sixth sense. As part of the Icarus project, the scientists equip animals with transmitters.
We're now able to observe animals around the clock, wherever they are. This means that for the first time, we can receive continuous information about them, which is then fed into the Internet of Animals. It works by giving them little electronic devices. We call them wearables for wildlife.
The wearable sensors send information in real time via cell phone network or satellite and can even exchange it directly, effectively from animal to animal. The data is then analyzed using artificial intelligence.
Take an ear tag on a rhinoceros. The beauty is that the ear tag doesn't just record data, like the speed or whereabouts of the animal, but it also interprets the data. That is, we have artificial intelligence in the ear tag that we trained beforehand. All of that allows the animals to effectively communicate with us.
In recent times, however, the project has been under enormous strain. The signals for the Icarus project were transmitted in part via the International Space Station in collaboration with Russian partners. After Russia's invasion into Ukraine last year, the cooperation stopped. But there's something new in the pipeline.
We'll launch a new satellite next year, and then have a much better system which we control ourselves. In 10 years, I believe we won't just be consulting the weather forecast, but the animal forecast, a report from life on Earth itself.
So, you see, by using the special abilities of animal species, humans can benefit in multiple ways. Many farmers are starting to recognize that animals have better solutions to their problems than human technology can offer. Our next report comes from the Mediterranean island of Cyprus, where pesticide use has caused great damage to the ecosystem. But now, a natural solution is taking flight.
In an abandoned village, this 4-month-old owl is getting prepped and ready for work. With a tag clipped to its limbs, officials here can monitor the bird's movements and compile important information for a unique project. Its task is simple: to hunt rodents and help save thousands of acres of farmland. is part of an initiative to organically control pests in Cyprus's Green Line area. The Green Line, or the buffer zone, is the demilitarized zone about 180 kilometers long, dividing the Republic of Cyprus and the self-declared Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus due to an old conflict. It's made up of abandoned villages and overgrown farms, and a part of it is monitored by a United Nations peacekeeping mission. There are grain farms still being cultivated here, but farmers face a major problem.
The buffer zone is an area that not much human activity is being going on for decades. It's an area with, in some parts of it, is lots of rodent problem. And because it's mostly agricultural area, I think it's an area that it's an ideal project for a barn owl to be nesting box scheme to be placed.
The Brown Owl Project is an 8-year-old initiative to get more farmers to stop using dangerous pesticides that degrade the soil and leak into our drinking water. The chemicals are common in Cyprus, despite a ban.
Unfortunately, in Cyprus, pesticides banned in Europe and by local legislation seep through the buffer zone and are used by many farmers to control rodents. These products make their way up the food chain and reach humans.
Now, the Cypriot government and BirdLife Cyprus, an NGO, wants farmers to use brown owls instead. The birds are powerful predators thanks to their excellent nighttime vision, precise hearing, and special wings that make no noise during flight. A family of brown owls can eat up to 1,000 mice a year, making them an efficient and free natural pest control method. Across Cyprus, the project has now deployed more than 1,000 brown owls. The hope is that this scheme will be a win for the environment, but also for the people and their farmlands. Like many in the village of Denea, farmer Christodoulos used to use rat poison on his fields, but he has now joined the Brown Owl Project, which is organic and cost-free for him.
The owls are a miracle. They completely overcame the problem of rodents. Today, when we plow our fields and wander the streets and squares of our village, it's almost impossible to find rodents and rats. Between
20 to 50 brown owls now live here in the buffer zone. The birds generally die from eating rat poison or colliding with cars. Luckily, brown owls can lay several eggs at a time, like this adult mama bird that's incubating 5 eggs at the moment. Cypriot authorities are now pushing for more farmers in the country to take up this method. One incentive will see farmers joining the project get paid for giving up pesticides and installing nest boxes instead.
Returning the owls to Cyprus is a small but important step to undo the damage modern farming has done. But can you practice agriculture without disrupting the biosphere in the first place? We visited a family that has been allowed to farm in the middle of a strictly protected national park in Britain. The catch? They must live with minimal ecological footprint.
Elsa and Billy are collecting eggs. Their father, Matthew Watkinson, has made his dream come true. He and his family made a fresh start. Matthew gave up his job as a veterinarian. So did his wife, Caris. Now they farm a small piece of land in Newport, Wales, where their property overlooks the water.
There's a wealth of opportunities and possibilities for those with a bit of imagination to say, I want to try something different. And this was that outlet. We just wanted to let creativity and imagination go and turn what is just bare sheep fields into something full of life.
The Watkinsons live from what nature provides. Their property is completely off the grid. Instead of a washing machine, they have a makeshift hand-powered device. A small windmill and solar panels provide electricity. But when it's still or cloudy, power can be in short supply. Everything is improvised, and everything gets recycled, even old cars.
So this one we plant all our seeds and we start our seeds growing in there. And then this one we've got a spare bedroom in, so that's if friends or family visit.
So we started with a horse lorry. That seemed to be the quickest way to create a habitable space. We needed a bit more space, so we decided we'll get some old agricultural trailers, slot them in behind, link it all together somehow, cover it in wood. And this is the result. It's a kind of complete hodgepodge of things that we could find at the time.
Vegetables are grown in old truck tires. It's winter, but rhubarb is sprouting from the soil. They grow fruit and vegetables without pesticides and take care to increase biodiversity on their property. The Welsh Government supports sustainable projects like this one under a programme called One Planet Development. In return, the Watkinsons must demonstrate they provide at least 65% of their food and energy themselves. To earn money, they give courses for people who want to live a low-impact lifestyle. They'd hoped to raise honeybees, but that turned out to be more difficult than they thought.
The bees were a big part of what we were doing up here. We're just not getting as much honey as we thought. Whether that's to do with climate change, warm, wet winters that we seem to be getting more often are pretty bad for bees. I don't know, but we're just happy if they're alive and very happy now that we've got one by the kitchen window.
Every year, the authorities check to make sure that the family is as self-sufficient as the rules require. Their building permit in the national park depends on it.
To show what your ecological footprint is, you have to literally record everything you've spent money on. All the food, any stationery, second-hand clothes, new clothes, shoes, just absolutely everything.
The Watkinsons were allowed to build on the coast in the national park. They received the permit because they met strict environmental criteria. They're on the mountain known as Carningley. Among the locals, it's said to be a magical place, and some object to the Watkinsons living there.
When the application was made for the One Planet development, it was an emotive issue because Carningley is held in high regard and revered locally, and many people thought it was inappropriate to have any form of development on the slopes of Carningley.
Why do they hurt?
The Watkinsons have been living here for 6 years, but now their neighbours are trying to block the property's access lane, a move they didn't expect.
The hardest part by far is dealing with the resistance to what you believe in. Like, I believe in making this patch of land more habitable for people, for wildlife.
Life in their converted trailers is rustic, especially on damp winter evenings, but they love it here and want to be an example for their children.
We're having much less of an impact on the environment doing this, and it kind of shows them how they might be able to do that in the future as well, and that we can do this without getting rid of all electricity and television and internet. You know, we've still got all of that, but we can do this.
Even if some of their neighbours haven't been won over, the Watkinsons hope that they're inspiring as many people as possible to live in harmony with nature.
Another area where our attitudes to nature are changing is bushmeat. Hunting wild animals for food is a traditional practice across Africa, but the bushmeat trend has come under fire in recent years. One reason is the rise in disease transmission between animals and the humans. But there are also very serious concerns about endangered species.
That's right, Sandra. And several countries have now banned the hunting, selling and consumption of bushmeat. It's good for the animals, but now has affected those whose livelihood once depended on the bushmeat trade.
This young dwarf crocodile had a lucky escape. It was rescued 3.5 months ago. Now Beyan Borbor is releasing it back into the wild. He is the conservation manager at Liberia's first general wildlife sanctuary. Before he started this job, he too would have seen crocodiles as a source of food. Now he's returned hundreds of animals to their natural habitats.
When I was growing up, I had the common view of all Liberians. Eating bushmeat is like a custom or a tradition. But growing up and going to school, learning about conservation and getting into the field, working with wildlife, it has changed everything. My current state is to motivate people or to bring about change in communities and to schools and even in the villages where most of these animals come from.
The forests, mangroves and rivers of Liberia are a global biodiversity hotspot with hundreds of different species of birds, mammals, reptiles and plants. A few years ago, Liberia passed a law banning the sale and consumption of bushmeat. The aim is to preserve biodiversity and prevent the spread of disease.
Okay, and we make it warm.
The Libasa Wildlife Sanctuary outside the capital Monrovia was founded in 2017. The staff here care for a huge variety of wildlife. Most of the animals were confiscated by Forestry Development Authority from people involved in the now illegal bushmeat trade.
Sanctuary is absolutely imperative to Liberia. The wildlife law came and got changed in 2016, and when the law is enforced, they have to have somewhere to bring these animals that are relinquished. Most of the animals here are actually orphans, and this little bushbuck is a prime example. Came in at 350 grams, which is the weight that it would be while it was when it was born. So there is a 99% chance that its mother had actually been killed for bushmeat, and the little one was left.
With nearly 70% of Liberia's population living in a close proximity to the country's dense forests, bushmeat was incredibly popular. The most common animals targeted were pangolins, along with several species of monkeys. Comfort Davis sold bushmeat in Monrovia's markets for over 20 years, but today she has become a national advocate for the country's wildlife and biodiversity.
And we're talking with the women and we're talking with other people to stop trading the bushmeat, because it won't be fine for we the Liberians. If we continue to trade bushmeat, our forest will be empty and will not be good for us.
According to the Worldwide Fund for Nature, Liberians used to get more than 75% of their protein from bushmeat. Much of it was sold at local markets where most people here get their food. Etta Nyema also sold bushmeat for many years. But after working with Comfort, she switched to selling fish, which benefits her and her family.
When we were selling the bushmeat, there was a risk. We used to go far distances. But now the fish I'm selling, no stretch inside. I'm selling both fresh fish and dry fish. We're going to go far away again. Even if I don't want to go buy, I can send my children or my grandchildren to go and buy my fish.
Comfort Deficit's advocacy looks to be paying off. A study was conducted on the prevalence of bushmeat being traded at the markets across the country. It found that in a single year, there was a 50% reduction in bushmeat. But despite these positive results, there are still challenges.
This market is no longer selling bushmeat, but we have so many markets in Liberia, dozens of markets, thousands of markets in Liberia, and then the Liberians are solely depending on bushmeat, so it takes time.
All change takes time, but awareness is half the battle, and any reduction could give critical endangered animals like this white-bellied tree pangolin and countless other species a fighting chance. The progress made in Liberia shows the effort is worthwhile to ensure the long-term survival of many diverse and beautiful species.
The effort is always worthwhile, That brings us to the very end of our special biodiversity edition, Every Species Counts. We hope you found it insightful. It is a goodbye from Kampala and me, Sandra Kahomza Twinodio.
And from me, Chris Alems in Lagos. If you enjoyed this show, please make sure you check out all our environment content online. Goodbye.
No.